What is being human anyway? By Why Can't Turtles Fly? Chapter 1, Yokohama. Dazai hesitated outside of Chuya's apartment door. What the hell was he doing? It's not like he would say anything. So what was he doing? Why was he even here? What was so fucking important about Chuya that Dazai was here, lingering outside of his apartment with his hand frozen halfway to the doorknob? And if he did open the door, what would he even say? Yeah, sorry, I can't be your partner anymore because I decided to run off and become a traitor to the organization that you are oh so loyal to? Also, my best friend died, so there's that. There was nothing Dazai could say. The truth was harsh, and stupid, and lies. Well, Dazai didn't quite know how he felt about lies anymore. Odasaku had told him to be on the good side, which was well and good, but in retrospect, Dazai didn't know what the good side even was. He supposed the good side meant less lying, less deceiving, and he also supposed that was a start. But lies were easy, and he had built himself a persona, a reputation on lies. It was simple enough to say, good people don't lie, but it was not nearly as simple to see where Dazai started and the lies ended. If there was even such a thing. Dazai might entirely be made up of lies by now. Silently, he rested his head on Chuya's door. He wondered what Chuya might be doing inside, in bed already, or curled up on the couch with a glass of wine under his favorite blanket. Dazai couldn't bring himself to break Chuya's tranquility. He didn't want Chuya to know he was here, even though he knew Chuya probably already knew. The security guards had started telling Chuya when Dazai arrived. He supposed it was well deserved after Dazai had picked the lock one too many times and stolen Chuya's food. Chuya had probably already been disturbed by his presence, waiting tensely inside for the moment Dazai would throw the door open, shattering the comfort of the evening. Maybe it would be better if Chuya didn't know he was here. Chuya would get impatient, slam open the door, and demand to know what Dazai was doing, lingering out here like some sort of creep. At least then Dazai could read his face and respond accordingly. He would say what Chuya needed to hear, be that a truth or a lie. But Chuya wasn't here, and his expressive face wasn't here to guide Dazai through the correct thing to say, and Dazai just didn't know. Not that not knowing was a foreign feeling. He had spent most of his life so utterly clueless at how to be a human that not knowing was like a second skin. Lingering on the brink of emotions, never sure what he should feel or what he should do, relying on the expectations of those around him to guide him through his actions. It really was all one big lie. Dazai was just who they wanted him to be. Never anything less, never anything more. He was barely Dazai at all, barely even a person. Maybe the only person he had been something resembling someone called Dazai was around Odasaku. Immovable, kind Odasaku. Odasaku, who was either so hard to read or so free of expectations that Dazai had to make it up. Maybe a little bit of the person called Dazai had shown through then. He didn't know. It was all so mixed up in the pretenses and the personas, and the need to be who Odasaku wanted him to be, that Dazai didn't really know anymore. It didn't matter. Odasaku was dead. The person Dazai was around him was dead too. He nearly wished for the expectations of the Mafia back. At least then he would know what to do. There was no precedent for this, nor anything he was supposed to do. Dazai wished he knew where the lies ended and he began, because maybe then he would have something to say that didn't feel false. Did he owe Chuya an explanation, an invite, the truth? Dazai didn't even know what the truth was anymore. He sighed. Maybe he should offer Chuya a congratulations. Chuya certainly wouldn't be sad to see him go. Pulling a blank piece of paper from his pocket, he stared at it with the same cluelessness as he did Chuya's apartment door. He couldn't bear to go inside and face Chuya. He would try to convince him to stay, to not betray the Port Mafia, and Dazai didn't know if he could handle that. Dazai had his mind set, and Odasaku's word to go on. He couldn't risk it. He would write the truth, he decided. That's what Odasaku would have wanted. Not the whole truth, not anything that Chuya wouldn't find out anyway, but the truth nonetheless. What was he doing here but to deliver the truth? He would give all the truth he knew, the bare bones of the situation. Chuya, I'm leaving the Port Mafia. Dazai paused. Should he say he was sorry? He should, but he wasn't sorry. The Port Mafia had done nothing for him. Chuya deserved an apology of some sort, but Dazai had none to offer. I thought you should hear it from me instead of in a meeting tomorrow. It wasn't like Chuya needed him anyway, Dazai wanted to write. But even that felt like too much. Too close to something that might be the truth. Dazai didn't know. Your ex-partner, Dazai Osamu. Dazai tucked the pin into his pocket and lingered for a moment, staring at the familiar door one last time before gingerly slipping the note under Chuya's door. He walked back towards the lift, not daring to look back. There was no one at Yokohama's waterfront when Dazai arrived, claiming the bench next to the bed of sweet-smelling crimson roses and pink carnations. Of course there wasn't. It was nearing midnight, and all the families who paraded along here during the day were safely tucked into their beds. Dazai took a deep breath of salty sea air. He wouldn't have this for the next 2 years while he was undercover. Maybe he would miss it. He didn't know. He had never gone much of his life without it. The stars twinkled down, and he was reminded of a story he read when he was younger. There had been gods and goddesses and heroes defeating gruesome beasts, but none of that had stuck with Dazai. He didn't even remember the name. What he did remember was that when the hero died, he had turned into the stars, constellations that immortalized him in humanity's memory forever. Dazai looked at the stars and wondered if maybe, just maybe, Odusaku had been given a constellation. Dazai had never bothered to memorize the stars, but now he wished he had. He wanted to see if Odusaku had been given a star, even just one. There was no one Dazai could think of that deserved one more. "I thought I'd find you here." Dazai whipped around. He should be disappointed to see Chuya here, angry at the very least. His voice should have sent shivers down Dazai's spine and dread coursing through his stomach, but it didn't. Dazai could barely even say he was surprised. He looked at Chuya, jacket thrown over some hastily thrown-on clothes, hands in his pockets, but anything but relaxed. Dazai could easily divert Chuya's attention from the elephant in the room. He didn't know why he didn't. Maybe he was a little fed up with all the pretenses. "So you're running away." Chuya's voice was flat and emotionless. Dazai wished it wasn't. He wished he could tell what Chuya would say next. "Please don't ask me to stay," he begged internally. "I don't know if I would have it in me to say no." Dazai steeled his nerves. "Yes." Why was it so hard to simply answer with one word? "You're a piece of shit, you know that, right?" Chuya said, anger lacing his tone. Dazai looked away, unable to bear seeing Chuya so distressed. He would let Chuya yell. Lord knows Dazai deserved it. "You know how much paperwork this is gonna cause me? All because you wanted to run off and become some sort of hero, you selfish prick. You don't get it at all, do you?" Chuya took a breath, his voice rising slowly as he spoke. "Betraying your whole fucking organization, and for what? What the fuck could you possibly gain? And not even giving a proper goodbye? I mean, what kind of fucking coward do you have to be just to slip a note under my door? A fucking note! No sorry, no explanation, no nothing." Dazai found himself wrapping himself up in Chuya's words. They were true. He knew he was being selfish, cowardly, but what did it matter? He was selfish and cowardly. This was the only fitting theme. He didn't know if this was what he wanted to do. It was what Odusaku wanted him to do. He thought of a million different ways he could deny Chuya's words. He could distract him, talk around them, anything. But what was the point in that? Chuya was right. Dazai didn't have enough fight in him to deny any of it. There was a beat of silence that had Dazai wishing for Chuya's harsh yelling back. The silence was so much more unbearable. "Odusaku died," Dazai whispered, not daring to look at Chuya. It was funny how desperate he was to see every single emotion, and yet, when he was presented with them, he couldn't bear to see the damage he caused. He could feel Chuya's gaze on him. "You were in the Port Mafia before you knew Odusaku. Why should it be any different after he's gone?" Dazai didn't know. Maybe it was because now he knew what he had lost. Maybe it had nothing to do with Odusaku at all. Maybe he had always wanted an excuse to be done with it all. At least, he settled on the only thing he really knew. The words that had been pushing him through the past day. He said it would be more beautiful on the other side. Dazai didn't pretend to know what beauty was, but he would like to find out. "Is that it?" Chuya said, half disgusted, half accepting. There was no point in hiding it now. It was probably the last time Dazai would see Chuya anyway. Dazai nodded. "Jesus fucking Christ." Chuya leant back on the bench, and Dazai finally braved a glance at him. Chuya looked up quickly, catching Dazai's eye. Dazai wasn't sure what he saw in them. There wasn't much to see in Dazai's eyes, anyway, but it must have made a difference. "What the fuck is even happening? How much longer do you have before you have to go into hiding?" "Until tomorrow morning." "And you have to stay under the radar for how long?" Dazai wasn't sure why Chuya wanted to know, but there was no harm in telling. 2 years. "Great. I have fake passports at my house. Bring your big-ass backpack, the green one, with essentials. Meet me there in an hour and a half." Dazai frowned. "Why are you telling me what to do?" "We're running away, you fucking idiot." Chuya sighed, standing up and walking away from Dazai. Make sure you don't show up looking like some fancy mafia hotshot. Dazai wasn't entirely sure why Chuya had dragged him to the airport. Well, he knew why. They were going to catch a flight. It was why they were going to catch a flight that Dazai was confused about. He squinted up at the board detailing the departures, the orange lights becoming hazy. Everything at the airport felt a little too loud and indistinct. The background clatter continued on and on, rattling around inside Dazai's head until it was all he could hear. Hundreds of indiscernible voices saying words that held no meaning. Talking to you, you giant idiot! Dazai looked down at Chuya, who was scowling at him. He had no energy to even carefully arrange his face in any sort of expression, let alone the one he was supposed to have. Dazai knew that he would usually tease Chuya back, and he should tease Chuya back, if only to keep up appearances. But he was too tired, too numb, too hurt, and too done with it all to even care. He simply stared at Chuya, eyes blank and face unmoving. Chuya sighed, leaning close up to Dazai in order to be heard. There's a plane to Singapore that leaves in 2 hours. If they have the tickets, we'll be able to make it. Dazai shrugged. It didn't matter to him where they ended up, be it Moscow, Mexico City, or anywhere in between. Chuya sensed this was all he was getting from Dazai and grabbed his wrist to drag him over to the ticket desk. He let the words of Chuya and the tired-eyed lady selling tickets wash over him, content to take it all in without adding his input. It was easier if he was some kind of spectator anyway. He didn't speak as they went through baggage security and had their passports checked and walked into the gate. He felt no need to. He knew he was meant to, but for once, just this once, he was allowed to let his outside reflect his inside. No, maybe he was allowing himself to. He didn't know. He just knew he was supposed to reply, especially when Chuya was telling him about where they were going, but he felt no need to. Maybe if he was quiet, it would be like he didn't exist. The person called Dazai didn't even exist. Perhaps this was how it was supposed to be. Even his footsteps were silent, with nothing but his bag rattling. He was as unobtrusive as possible. But Chuya didn't seem to mind. He kept talking, and Dazai appreciated it. It gave him something to listen to as he floated silently around. Something to focus on. At times, he felt himself get lost in Chuya's stories, and he could feel himself laughing, even if nothing in his face changed to show it. They finally settled down on the plane at 4 a.m., surrounded by sleepy-looking travelers. Dazai stared at Chuya, the question of why rattling around in his head. He begged Chuya to explain, wishing he could pick apart the man's mind just by looking. The constant whys were loud enough to push through the invisible boundary that separated Dazai from the outside world. Why? He asked softly, his voice sounding like the loudest thing there was, even though it had barely made a dent on the commotion that was the outside world. Chuya's head whipped towards him. Why? Why what? Dazai didn't say anything. Even one word had been a lot. One word was the bare minimum, and it was all Dazai was going to give. He just stared at Chuya, eyes flat and emotionless. Chuya sighed. Why are we going to Singapore? Dazai said nothing. Are you going to make me guess? He was met with the same flat look he had been met with all evening. I'll take that as a yes. Why am I going with you? Why is Oda dead? Why are we on a plane? When he got no response, Chuya squinted, studying Dazai. Why are we leaving at all? Dazai nodded. Chuya looked thoughtful for a moment. Well, we've got to go undercover, right? They definitely aren't going to find us if we aren't even in Japan. We'll go back, after 2 years. I just thought, wouldn't it be so much nicer to see the world instead of being cooped up in some basement for 2 years? It would be much nicer, Dazai thought to himself. Thank you, Chuya. He turned to stare out of the porthole window, watching as the ground retreated and Tokyo's lights were spread out beneath them. It didn't seem real. Nothing did. Maybe it wasn't, but what did that matter? He would enjoy it for now. Maybe Otosaku would want this for him. Just kidding, actually, so I can't record anything the same way ever because I'm just not consistent with anything, clearly.